Hi, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Kim, and welcome to Setting the Course series. In this, the first part of 3, we'll be looking at a direction of staying the course.
So, Kim, how do we get to this place where we're deciding what course to take?
Well, let's recap what we discussed last year. We've noticed that there's been a shift in demographics within the church populations. For example, younger people are not coming to church. Another thing that we've noticed is that the relevancy within society of church and religion has changed. Another thing that certainly has affected us here at McKillop and all churches is the pandemic itself. And finally, there's been a great economic shift. And of course, the pandemic added to that. And we're feeling that pinch as well.
So, Kim, why are we recommending looking at this process of setting the course?
We're looking to create a hope-filled future. Hope is the ability to set some realistic goals, to be able to problem solve, and to create a pathway for the future, as well as to have agency and to have the belief in the project. This process will help us to understand our intentions. And when we find our intentions strong, our strongest intentions as a church, then we'll be able to spend the necessary time and energy on that strongest hope.
What is the stay the course about, Kim, and what are the benefits?
Well, there are some benefits to staying the course, obviously. One of them happens to be very little has to change. We can continue on in the same mindset and the same cultural ethos. As well, we can carry on with the current programming, our current theology, and our current services. There's a possibility to improve, enhance in some areas, and certainly we can work on a Sunday school or youth programming. It's very comfortable to be like this. We know what to accept, and we're comfortable here.
I'm curious, what are the consequences of staying the course?
Well, there are consequences with any decision, isn't there? One of them is that we already know that we have a continuing decline in our membership. We also have a decline in our resources, our volunteers, for example, as well as our finances. Every year, we have a growing deficit, and that will continue with that economic pressure. And finally, we'll probably see a reduction of services as well as staffing.
You know, these consequences are not predictable, but it seems that in hundreds of churches across Canada that these trends are continuing on over the decades. And so there is this declining economic revenue, volunteer resources, maintaining building expenses, and eventually they cause churches to have to either consider closing, selling their property, and moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I see that there are 2 C's, Kim, consequences and consciousness. Can you tell us what this means?
Well, we just talked about the consequences, so let's talk about the consciousness. You know, there's never a perfect direction for anything. We know that as family members.
Yeah.
When we make a decision, there's always something that comes with it. But if we feel victimized, if we're not aware of it. And so what we're trying to do is raise the awareness.
Yes.
To raise the consciousness of all 3 choices that we do have in front of us. And to take one of those will be enriched and energized by the Spirit within the whole congregation, within the church itself. And hopefully that will provide us with great direction.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but to decide, the etymology of the word means to cut off. And so when you make a decision, eventually you cut off something, and what you let go of, you have to grieve, and you have to experience sadness because you can't do everything.
And well, this particular direction kind of sounds catastrophic, rather radical. It really isn't.
No.
If we think about it, or if we think of what the Bible even says, with everything, there is a season.
Mm-hmm.
There's birth, there's growth, there is life, and there is death. And these are the human experience. And our organizations are a reflection of the human experience.
And if we can approach, as we're talking about, staying the course with gentleness and humility, and knowing that whatever decision we make is okay, it allows us to have this consciousness with it. It's sort of like when someone is working with cancer, isn't it?
Well, but any, terminal disease where somebody knows that the end is inevitable, when they make the choice between maybe more chemo or more radiation, or they just stay the course.
Yeah, stay the
They
course.
just keep going and say, no, my life is.
And in that moment when they decide to stay the course, they're actually honoring every moment of their life, even though they may not be taking more chemo or radiation. And it is a beautiful choice, and people have experienced that beauty before.
And so we shouldn't put on ourselves any guilt or regrets
Yeah.
because we're taking a particular choice.
That's right.
This one or any of the other ones.
Yeah. And staying the course can be very beautiful if that is what you feel Spirit calling. But it still has, like all human experiences, grief and sadness.
In part 2 of 3, we'll be looking at the direction of joining with other like-minded churches.
I hope you can join us for part 2, and take care.